afternoon, friends. I am excited to bring you a new series on this channel called Messed Up Manga. Shit's getting serious. So what we're going to be doing for Messed Up Manga is I'm going to be putting myself through a series of traumatic events by getting my hands on and reading through some of the most messed up manga series that can be found on the internet. I'm not looking. I'm already regretting my choices, but I got a morbid curiosity, right? I've had it since I've been younger. I've already read through a lot of messed up series, and what I want to do is to bring you guys some of this garbage so you don't have to read it or watch it if you don't want to, you know? You can get your morbid curiosity out of the way by watching my trauma, and then everybody's happy, right? So what I wanted to talk with you guys about today, the first messed up series we're going to be going into is Shigurui. Now, Shigurui translates to death frenzy, and boy, is that a pretty damn accurate name. So I gotta just say right off the bat, man, there's some fucked stuff that happens in this series, man. Like, if you can think of it, it happens. Like, I'm convinced that the author of this series was like a Guro artist. They had to be. Like, if you guys aren't familiar with Guro, that's the tag basically for like erotic and gore mixed together, like in either like hentai or manga series and stuff, where like they mesh the two worlds together and you just get all sorts of just awful stuff. Like just legitimately awful stuff. But the reason I say that, man, is that like so much of this, like his work is so detailed, you know. Like, normally when you see like gore and like anime, manga and that kind of stuff, they're not getting like deep into it, you know, where it's like, oh, like you might see like, oh, this guy's got like half a face and like there's this dark shadow and then you just see blood and you're like, oh, that's crazy. Nah, man. Like, this author here, he shows you everything. Like, somebody getting disemboweled, you're about to see those intestines. Oh, and let me also tell you about the stench that comes from those intestines because this guy forgot to poop before he died. Oh, you want to see like a man getting his eye socket knocked out by a wooden sword? We got that for you. You want to see a little kid gets split in half and then like his brain's falling out one side and then like this other half of his face is kind of like limping over this way while he's kind of like we got that for you. Dude, it's wild, bro. It's wild. Like, I can't show it. YouTube ain't gonna let me show you any of this stuff. I'm gonna have to censor the hell out of this video in order to even make this like remotely look atable. But like, if you have a sense of morbid curiosity and you want to know a little bit more about this series, let me give it to you. So this is what I will say, that outside of the gore, like, this is a legitimately good series. Like, it's kind of crazy because like in a lot of the stuff that I'm going to talk to you guys about in this series, the gore is the main attraction point, you know. Like, the author is trying to shock you into looking at this stuff and to looking at this crazy crap that's going on in their head and like to make the reader go, ah. But like, this is really story driven. It just so happens that in order to communicate the brutality that the author wants to get across in the story, they got to show you how fucked up some of this stuff is. And they did a pretty good job, to be honest. They did a pretty dang good job. So our story takes place in feudal Japan, like the Warring States period, where you have Tadanaka Nobunaga, where he's just this absolute heinous ruler, where he I don't even want to say rules the land with an iron fist, but he's legitimately a sadist, you know. Like, he is hungry with power. He grew up as a spoiled child who got whatever he wanted because he was the son of a nobleman. He came from a royal family, of course, and people, due to the hierarchical nature of society in Japan at that time, nobody could ever put him in check, right? If they did, they would be immediately executed. So he was allowed to do whatever he wanted to, live however he wanted to, and treat human beings however he wanted to. And now imagine a man with that mindset being the ruler of the land, right? And so it sets up how this guy is just a sadist who has people just kill because like maybe he's in a bad mood that day. Maybe you sort of looked at him wrong. Maybe he just thought it was funny at the time, you know. And the manga literally opens up with one of the retainers or like another nobleman trying to express to Tadanaka. They're telling him, because Tadanaka wants to have a tournament, right? We get set up with Mortal Kombat. Like, that's the first thing we got, is we got the Kumite.
The Kumite? Did you say Kumite? Uh-huh, the Kumite. What's a Kumite?
Happening. We got the Kumite. And what Tadanaka basically wants to do is that he wants to watch people kill each other for his amusement. He thinks that it's great. And originally it was going to be like it was going to have men from all over the country, from all these powerful families. And what ended up happening is they basically found throwaway Ronin that they were putting into the ring in order for this dude to get his rocks off, so it didn't cause any more political issues basically. But the manga starts off with one of those noblemen disemboweling himself. Well, let me rephrase that. He comes in disemboweled. He's talking to Tadanaka, telling him, this is why this is terrible. People are going to be dying for no reason. We don't need to do this. This is brutal. It's going to be awful. And in order for me to show you how bad this is going to be, the man removes his shirt, right? He digs into his gut and he proceeds to pull his intestines out. That's like the first 3 pages, bro. Like that's the first 3 pages, man. That's how this whole thing starts off. And from that point, I was like, I don't know what I'm getting into. Like, I can't say I don't, right? You get a manga that starts off like that. How are you going to say you didn't know what you were walking into? So that's how it starts off. Like, the guy disembowels himself, throws him on the ground, and then Tadanaka's like you guys seen that meme with was it Jack Nicholson where he's like, his eyes are all big and he's shaking his head up and down. Yes, that's basically what he does. He loves it. He's like, boy, you know. He's super feeling it. And it goes from there, man. So outside of the gruesomeness, the terribleness of Tadanaka, the story revolves around 2 samurai. It tells the story of Iriko and Fujiki, who are both 2 young men who grew up poor. They grew up basically with people telling them that they wouldn't have a future, they don't matter, they're alive, like they're not gonna mean anything. And what both men end up doing is finding a path into greatness through the sword, you know. But their paths end up diverging, and this leads them to the fated battle, which is what the entire manga basically leads up to. You know, the climax is finally the fight between those 2. And this series is so good, guys. Like, it's so good. It has so much philosophy and just historical representations of like what that time was like. I was gonna say I can recommend this to anybody. I can't recommend this to anybody because of just how effed up some of the stuff that happens in here is. Like like, it's got some stuff, man. Like, and you always have those edgelords that are like, bro, this ain't even that bad. Have you read? Like, I've read some other stuff too. I'm gonna continue to read messed up stuff because I want to continue with this series. But like, let's not pretend that some of the imagery in this manga and some of the things that happen to people and like the way they get maimed and like the abuse and just, it ain't good, guys. Like, you got like a terrible thing that can happen to a person. Like, it probably happens in this manga, to be completely honest. But with our 2 main characters, right, I was saying about how like their paths diverge. On the one hand, you have Irako, who's motivated by ambition, right? He hates the aristocracy, he hates noble people because of the way he grew up and like them thinking that they're automatically better than him and others because of their station. So what he does is he plans on like playing the system. You know, he hates authority, so he's trying to work his way up the ranks in order to have more like power and wealth, so nobody can tell him what to do and destroy the class system from the inside. Basically, he wants to abolish it. And on the other hand, we have our boy Fujiki, who was saved by a samurai clan, right? So like, he feels indebted. He feels that his life is indebted to this clan for getting him out of squalor, and like, he was about to die. His parents literally strung him up from a tree and were gonna let the blood rush to his head and destroy his blood vessels and kill him. So he had a great existence, right? But the samurai, right? The Kogan, Master Kogan comes and teaches him the way of Kogan Ryu, which is their fighting style, their sword technique. But after Kogan comes and saves his life, he feels indebted to him, and he decides that on this day Genosuke died, right? The man that he was before is dead, and now he's just strictly a samurai. His life is here in order to protect and serve Kogan to the best of his ability. And what this manga does so well, man, besides the effed up gore and stuff, what it does so well is it explores how loyalty, hierarchy, and just the blind following of another human being can lead to such heinous acts. But also, on the other hand, how boundless ambition can also lead to like your downfall in doing some of the most evil things possible as well. And it uses the characters of Irako, excuse me, and I'm getting American over here, but uses Irako and Fujiki to show both sides of this coin, right? On one hand, you have boundless ambition. On the other hand, you have undaunting loyalty to the samurai code. And these two men have to inevitably clash, right? And it gets so good. Like, I don't want to spoil it, but like the themes that it discusses, right, of just like some of the things that like Fujiki does is that I'm gonna spoil one thing. It happens kind of early on, but there's this moment, right, where like there's this girl who is the master's daughter, who he's deeply in love with and has been for a long time. And the master tells him that, okay, well, I'm choosing Irako as like, you're going to be the heir to our fighting style, Kogan Ryu, right? I'm giving you the power, so now you have to impregnate my daughter. And the dude's a nut job, right? I forgot to mention that. Master Kogan, he's a complete nutcase. Like, the dude's like got like some form of dementia, Alzheimer's. He's like slobbering everywhere, and like sometimes he'll randomly have these moments of like clarity when like things get triggered. But most of the time, the dude's like, he is not fit to lead. Like, he has no business leading a group of people, which also goes into the themes of blind loyalty that we talked about, right? Where like you're doing the bidding of a man who you know it's wrong, but you still continue to do it. What is your role in this? You know, it talks about that. But that being said, he wants Irako to smash his daughter in front of him. So he has all of his disciples go hold down like his daughter's limbs, and he's like, run up in her. Guys, I was just sitting here like, for real, man? Like, what? Like, in front of you? And he's just like, seed. And in the back I picture like, seed. Like, oh, and like all the guys sharing them on and stuff. And I'm just sitting here like, oh my god. This shit was bad, bro. It was bad. And what ends up happening, right, is that Genosuke holds her down too. Fujiki, he takes her arm and he's like holding her down, and while she's about to get smashed by this other guy. And at that moment, like, Mie is the girl's name, she loses just like so much respect for Fujiki. And like their story arc kind of goes ups and downs, right? It has its ups and downs. But she's like, all men are just puppets, right? Like, all of the men that are like she's surrounded by, she has this realization. And something that I was put on to when I was looking up analysis of the story and just background and stuff is that in Japanese, apparently Mie means like to see, or like to be visible, or like, so her clarity and her understanding of the world around her is also kind of symbolically put into the story. And that's, if you're into symbolism and just like things beneath the surface and like things like that, this story is going to be for you, bruh. Like, there's a lot of things that aren't outright stated, but through either events that happen to the characters, the animals used, or like some of the things said, there's a lot of layers and crap happening beneath the surface that's like, oh shit, this guy's smart. Like, this author's really good. There's a lot of stuff like that. But yeah, it makes Genosuke throws away what he knows is right and what he wants for himself out of blind fealty to Kogan. And they showcase just like how low you can fall when like you're willing to do anything for somebody else and completely throw your own sense of right and wrong out the window. It's so good, man. I want to I want to get into like spoiler territory and stuff like that and talk about like some of the symbolism of the ending, like the things that happen to the characters and all that kind of stuff, and maybe like I'll do that in another video. But for now, we'll kind of leave it there and just say that this gets my recommendation. So let's say, so like most jacked up moments, let me think of what would be some of the most effed up moments in this series. There's a lot of them, dude. Okay, I'll give you guys one. So, most effed up moments, right? So, one of the things that sticks out the most to me in this series is that there's this samurai called Gonzaemon, right? And he is one of the retainers of Kogan. And Kogan tells him, I'm not training you properly because I can tell that you're still attached to something. And he's like, oh my God, I've never told anybody this. But he, like, in a few years, he's supposed to meet with like his childhood love, right? His girl back home. And like, subconsciously he's still attached to that family life, or that potential family life and stuff. So what he does is that he goes back on like the fated day, even though it's a year after he was supposed to arrive. They both somehow, some way came together at this point in time, even when they weren't supposed to, and they lovingly embrace, right? Like, it's beautiful. You're like, oh, Gonzaemon's gonna like start a family, like he's gonna get out of this, and he realizes where his heart's at. And then guess what he does? He takes his samurai sword. He takes his katana and he like cuts her in half. Like while he's holding her, he's like, baby. And he like cuts her, and then like all of her entrails and shit just fall out the bottom. And that's that. And then after he does that, guess what he does? Look, I'll give you a second. Guess. All right, you make a guess? Well, he takes his hands, right, and he castrates himself. Like, doesn't he? Not with a knife, not with a katana. Man just grabs down, grabs his jewels, right? Grabs his stuff and just rips them out. He's like, no love for me, guys. Never will I be blinded by a woman again. I can't with this story, guys. All I can say is that you need to read it. It's weird to me because a lot of interpretations of the story, I've been seeing people talk about how like one of their characters, they say like, oh, he's such a good guy, or like they talk about like how good of a person some of the characters are, and just like how like admirable some of these guys. I'm so lost at where they got that. To me, that seems like it completely is the opposite of what the author was trying to get at when they were telling this story. Because there's nobody that's really redeemable in this story, man. Like, outside of like Mie maybe, but like even her, like there's really nobody in this story who's a great person. But I think that's honestly the whole point. Like, Irako is trying, like his goal is great, right? To destroy this hierarchy and to show that like there's no differences in between classes and people. Fantastic. What he does to get there, though, all the crap that happens to him along the way, the stuff that he gets himself into, dude becomes a monster, and it destroys his humanity. We got, on the other hand, we got our boy Fujiki, right, who swears loyalty to the man that saved him, and that kind of loyalty is to be admired, right? Except what kind of things does Fujiki do in the name of loyalty? Turns that man into a monster. His heart is destroyed by his own philosophy and like idealizations and that kind of stuff. And this is what I think makes the story so good, is that like if you can handle mature subjects, if you can handle like mature themes and like crazy shit happening, this story has got a lot for you, because there's a lot to read in between the lines with. It's not just some generic like, let me show you my secret technique, and then like they pull the blade out and it's glowing, and this isn't one of those kind of shows. But if you're okay with like historical dramas, you're okay with mature subjects, I guess, if you're okay with gore, if you're okay with nudity, if you're okay with effed up stuff, you know, like if you're okay with just like reading a panel and being like then there's a lot to like here, man. The actual story, like, this isn't just a gore fest, right? It's there's something here. It's good. I can't speak for the anime. I've heard the anime is good. I personally read the manga, and that's what I recommend because the anime isn't finished. I'm pretty sure it leaves off at like a pretty bad cliffhanger from what I've been told. So my personal opinion, read the manga, and I've also heard that it's a lot more brutal, but give it a go, man. Like if you got the stomach for it, it's a good read. So that's gonna end it for today, guys. I appreciate you listening. Make sure you come back, interact with me over here at the channel. I'm excited for this, man. We're gonna talk about a lot of crazy stuff, and I think it's gonna be a good time. So with that, I'll talk to you guys later. Be good.